Prime. Hello, good evening and welcome to our major bulletin, Joy News Prime. We're live from our studios in Accra and available across Europe on ABN Sky Channel 235. Our top stories this hour: businessman Alfred Agbeshi Woyome has been cleared of the offense of causing financial loss to the state, but the Attorney General says she totally disagrees with the ruling. We'll be bringing you reactions from former President Rawlings and MPs. Sitting in Parliament was today suspended after Finance Minister said Tekle was heckled as he attempted to present government's revised economic policy statement. Also tonight, kidney failure patients have made a passionate appeal to government to support their treatment. They say cost of dialysis treatment is too much and is putting a huge financial burden on them. All these plus the latest in sports and business coming up in the next hour. The details now. State prosecutors have come under severe criticism for building a weak case against businessman Alfred Agbeshi Woyome, who has just been acquitted of 2 criminal charges. Mr. Woyome had been put on trial for causing financial loss to the state and defrauding by false pretenses. But after 3 years moving in and out of court, Mr. Woyome can heave a sigh of relief, even if for only a while. The High Court in Accra cleared him of all charges, with the judge accusing state prosecutors of doing a sloppy job. Here is a news desk report.
Alfred Woyome was paid 51 million cedis on the basis of his claim that he helped Ghana to raise funds to construct stadia for the purposes of hosting the 2008 Nations Cup. He was arrested on February 3, 2012, after the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO, which had been commissioned by President John Evans Atta Mills to investigate the payments to him. He was first arraigned on February 6, 2012, together with the 3 others suspected to have aided him. Woyome was initially charged with conspiracy, defrauding by false pretenses, and corrupting a public officer. Woyome was however rearranged and charged with causing financial loss to the state and defrauding by false pretenses. He was on February 13, 2012, granted a 54 million cedi bail, but his lawyers applied for variation, and on February 20, 2012, the bail condition was reviewed and reduced to 20 million cedis. A fallout from the Woyome scandal led to the dismissal of the then Attorney General and Minister of Justice Martin Amidu, who later managed to secure judgment against Woyome at the Supreme Court. It also led to the resignation of the then Minister of Education, Betimo Didrisu, who was Attorney General and Minister of Justice, had recommended that the money be paid to Woyome. But in a ruling on Thursday, the Accra High Court, presided over by Justice Ajet Nassam, cleared the man widely known to be an NDC of any wrongdoing. From all indication, it is more a case of state prosecutors failing to put up a fight. The judge reprimanded the prosecutors for building a weak case.
An Attorney General, Minister of Justice, has vowed to appeal the decision of the Accra High Court to discharge businessman Alfred Agbeshi Woyome, who had been standing trial for causing financial loss to the state and defrauding by false pretenses, was today acquitted on grounds that the prosecution failed to prove its case. But Attorney General and Minister of Justice Marietta Brewer-Pia told Joy News she totally disagrees with the ruling and will take a decision on the matter after thoroughly studying the detailed ruling.
We have, of course, taken note of the judgment given by the High Court acquitting and discharging Mr. Alfred Agbeshi Woyome in the criminal case brought against him by the state. We respect the High Court, but completely and totally disagree with the judgment. The state has applied for a copy of the judgment. We've been told we'll get it next week. We'll study it, and as a department, we'll decide on what next steps we will take. Let me place on record that the Supreme Court declared that the payment of 51.2 million to Mr. Alfred Agbesi Woyome was illegal and ordered that he refund the money. We are pursuing it in the Supreme Court. We've started the process of recovering the money, and we intend to continue with that process.
Meanwhile, a lawyer for Alfred Agbesi says he's happy with the ruling of the court discharging his client of the 2 offences he was tried for. Although Mr. Woyome was acquitted of the criminal charges against him, the Supreme Court, in an earlier civil case brought by former Attorney General Martin Amidu, ruled that he must refund all 51 million Ghana cedis paid to him. His lawyer, Musa Ahmed, in an exclusive interview with Joy News, refused to comment on whether Mr. Woyome has refunded the money.
Say this on record that the judgment is one of the best I have ever heard in recent times.
Let me ask, I know from the one I've been part of this. Do you know why, for example, the likes of Barton and the rest were not called?
Well, I'm not in the team of the prosecution, so I wouldn't be in a position to speak for them. It is the prosecution team who can speak to this matter.
Well, let me ask again. I mean, at the last time they went to the Supreme Court, summer 2014, and there's a judgment against the women to bring back the money. What does this particular judgment mean to that particular case?
You see, there's a clear distinction between criminal prosecution and institution of civil action for claims. Criminal prosecution, the requirement for proof of the person's guilt is beyond reasonable doubt. The standard is very high. But in the case of a civil claim, the standard required of the claimant or the plaintiff is one on a balance of probability. So it's not the same. You can't put the two together and get the same conclusion. One is different, the other is also a different, so based on different principles.
From the Supreme Court ruling, has he started paying the money?
Well, I am not instructed to speak about this matter because it is a privilege between myself as a lawyer and my client. I cannot speak to that in public.
Well, I know that 3 years has been such a long time. I mean, moving forward, how is it going to be like for you guys?
Well, you see, we need to develop our criminal law. If you allege that an offense has been committed, constitutionally, the best thing is to put the person who has been charged before the court. You don't put him before the street. You put him before the court so that at the end of it, you would have advanced the course of our criminal justice system. And as for me, I believe that whether 3 years or more, it is good for the accused person and also good for the state, the public to know that, well, the court...
And I believe that after 3 years, this particular case has come to an end. I mean, you've always maintained that your client is not innocent, but the extent to which the verdicts will go. Were you surprised by the extent to which the judge read the content?
Well, I wasn't surprised because I expected this. And that has always been our case, that we did nothing wrong. And so this case has buttressed our point that we did nothing wrong.
Right, Annie Osabote, our Joy News reporter, Annie Osabote is here with me. Annie, you have been all around today, man. It's Woyome Day, Woyome Day.
I tell you, it's Woyome Day, Woyome here, Woyome there, Woyome everywhere.
I know. Now, when you saw him, did you see him today?
Of course, I was at his house, actually the court here, and then I was at his house. And I went there because, I knew from the court that right from the court, most of the supporters and family and close relations will be going there. So I did go there, and a lot of people were in the house. They were powdered, they were like white scarf around their necks.
Jubilation.
Yeah, jubilation is essentially because right from the moment when you saw the number of armored vehicles at the court premises alone, instinctively you might think, okay, today the guy is going to be locked down.
Yeah.
And then it turns out the other way around. We're very sad. Even right from the courtroom, thank you, Jesus. They came out, they were jubilating, they were dancing, people were celebrating, people were just honking their horn, and then later this afternoon I went to his house trying to get an interview. Unfortunately, we didn't speak. But we had a conversation, and you could tell from from the look of things, his demeanor, that, you know, that kind of the pressure is off him a bit and all of that.
Now, at court today, how did he look like? I mean, you've told me that the court was tense because of the armored presence and everything, but him as a person, what was his demeanor in court today?
Interestingly, I was having a conversation with him, so I asked him, like, for example, like, when the what were you thinking when the reading was being done and all of that? And he said, well, nothing. I was just listening to that again. But, you know, interestingly, it was not. If you look at him, he was not looking at the judge. He was looking through the window. So it's like he's facing, like, you face him now, and the judge was sitting on my right, but he was looking towards my direction and not the judge.
Why so?
I have no idea why, but maybe just to kind of be able to focus and listen thoroughly the judgment, you know, and then occasionally I would still glance at the wife and the brother and some few close friends who came with him. And at every stage, they will nod in approval, because if the judge says something that really, you know, hits for them, then they will nod in approval that, okay, he's going for us. For example, when the defrauding by false pretense was acquitted and discharged on that, you know, I says like we wanted to then there scream, but they couldn't. That's because the reading was still going on.
They had to control themselves.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, there are many who have questioned whether the Attorney General's department was serious in its case against Woyome. Of course, against the background that a civil case had been won by Martin Amido in the Supreme Court, which required that he refunded 51 million Ghana cedis. I would have thought that it would have been a foregone conclusion that the criminal proceedings would just nail him. I mean, did you see a certain level of unpreparedness on the part of the Attorney General's department throughout the case?
Yeah, let me tell you one thing. You know, when prior to the case being the Alfred Woyome giving his final word before a judgment was set, I remember I was in the court and one particular lawyer said that, oh, these guys, if they don't call the key characters, that's baptism mode, Idriso and Batinojo, for example, I mean, this particular case is going to go nowhere. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer, so I wouldn't be in a position to determine. But since reading this whole case, one of the key things that has come up has to do with the fact that Alfred Woyome did receive a default judgment that in 2010. The state failed to contest that. Now, the default judgment, they were thinking that the state could have gone back there and have a review of the process, but you did not do that. And while that judgment was still pending, you come to another court of the same stature.
That's right.
Wanting to prosecute the man for monies that you yourself had okayed for him. So, on what grounds are you going to arrest him? Yeah. On what grounds are you going to say that he fraudulently duped the state and took the money away?
Right, Ani, I'm sure that we'll be discussing this a lot more. Ani Osabote is our man who has been covering the Woyome issue from the very beginning. But former President Jerry John Rawlings, the founder of the ruling NDC, has questioned government's commitment to fighting corruption, expressing his views on the acquittal of Alfred Agbeshi Woyome. Mr. Rawlings angrily lashed out at the decision by the Attorney General's department not to pursue others who allegedly collaborated with Woyome to rob the state. He alleged that many people are clamoring for positions within the NDC to protect themselves from being pursued for their corrupt practices.
As Attorney General's office, women who collaborate with this and our chairman, I'm not tell about general sentence, man. We are fighting corruption. We're not serious. We're not serious. Meanwhile, I'm a family joke. I have work positions here, party here. We know how two more party here, back home more. Maybe 40% Asian, 60% air voting. To protect themselves. You want one vote, well, how many? You want another yano? Do Luigi walk? Are we so stupid? As the support base, the electoral college, one another yano. Ni chabo onu he ona no confeto mo ona ni bi ya onu mi ne ko ye mayo eko
Now, as we told you earlier, despite the not guilty verdict, Mr. Woyome still owes the Ghanaian taxpayer 51 million Ghana cedis. That is, unless the Supreme Court sets aside its own ruling in a civil case brought against Mr. Woyome by former Attorney General Martin Amido. Legal practitioner Egbert Fable explains the difference between the two cases.
The Supreme Court did not try Mr. Woyome's case or the case against Mr. Woyome that was brought by Honorable Martin Amido within the remit of criminal law. They tried it within the remit of civil law. Mr. Amido's case was that there was no agreement and that the High Court, once there was no agreement, lacked jurisdiction to have heard the case. And the court on review upheld that position of Mr. Amido. So, pursuant to that, it ordered Mr. Woyome to refund the money. Now, if you recall, and in the case of O.J. Simpson, he was prosecuted for the alleged murder of his wife at the time. The American prosecution, or whoever prosecuted him in the United States, lost the criminal case. He walked away a free man. But the family of his deceased wife sued him in a civil case and won huge damages. So if you relate the two, are you also going to say that why did O.J. Simpson win the criminal case against him but lost the civil case against him? It tells you that there are limits of the law, and each one has its rules of engagement. So if you are the prosecution or a plaintiff in a matter, you ought to play within the rules.
Some members of parliament say they're not surprised that Mr. Woyome has been found not guilty of the charges against him.
If what we are receiving and hearing is anything to go by, I think that the courts have spoken and Ghanaians should take what the judge has said. The state has another opportunity in the Court of Appeal if they are dissatisfied with this ruling. They have another date with the Supreme Court if they so wish that the Court of Appeal are not ruled according to what they feel it should be the case. We should allow the process to take its course. As we stand here today, if the judgment is anything to, or the ruling is anything to go by, the court, in the opinion of the judge, the prosecution has not proved the case against Alfred Agbesi Woyome, and therefore that is it. He works. Woyome is a citizen of the Republic of Ghana. He has a right to belong to a political party. So if he belongs to the NDC, so be it. But the NDC party has not received money from the Attorney General, has not received money from the state of Ghana. Mr. Woyome was the one who was paid money. And so let's concentrate in the appropriate quarters. If you want to bring in political party, we'll get nowhere. Because for us, it means nothing. It was used as a campaign tool against us. We still won our election. So we are not bothered about that. We should be concerned as to whether our courts are working, our judicial system is working to the best of its ability or not.
From the little report I've heard, the court was lamenting about the poor showing of the prosecution. That is to say that either the prosecution deliberately presented a weak case or that they did not prepare. But for me, and I stated this much earlier, that the chances of getting a conviction on Mr. Woyome alone without the public officials was a far-fetched one. Way back, because as I just said, he presented documents. If the public officials had not conspired with him, it would have been impracticable to get any money. So the moment they would do the charges against the public officials and they refused to charge Betty Mulder-Drissu, for example, I had never had any faith. And I'm not surprised that the prosecution had a hard time proving the case. All along, we had followed the trial. The judge had always been lamenting about the poor showing of the prosecution because they were having a hard time showing that he did anything untoward alone. any keen follower of what was happening in court since the inception of this case would not be surprised about the outcome.
Why do you say so?
I say so because, you see, it's the Attorney General that prosecutes all criminal cases. And if the Attorney General is not too much interested in a case, it becomes obvious. And if you follow this case very well, you appreciate the fact that at a certain point in time, even the presiding judge was a bit angry that the witnesses they were calling, they were not coming and all that. So I knew it. And any keen follower will not be surprised about the outturn of the events as happened this morning.
And Mr. Woyome's acquittal has been met with mixed reactions from the public. While some believed the Attorney General's office failed to handle the case seriously, others were of the view Alfred Woyome did no wrong.
The court has just done is to tell government or any leading official that whenever they are doing things, they should do it on a good note. It should be well documented. On one aspect, you see Woyome being on the right path. On the other aspect, you see Woyome being on the wrong path. So I think rule of law has just spoken.
The guy even said that he didn't work for it. So how come the court has to say that he has to go freely? I mean, this is not fair. It's not fair to Ghanaians.
Following the case, one would think that the seriousness that was needed to be attached to the case wasn't attached. You saw that coming. I saw that coming because I felt that the case had been treated lightly for the money that he is purported to have defrauded the state of. The case wasn't given that much attention.
I'm disappointed in the AG. I'm very sad for today because we all know we've been following this case for years, and we all know that Woyome doesn't have any contract with Ghana, if I could say Ghana. But to the extent for the AG to play a shoddy system for Woyome, it means Ghana, we have a long way to go.
News Prime, we're live from our studios in Accra, also available across Europe on ABN Sky Channel 235. We'll take a break here and we'll be right back with more news. Do stay. Welcome back. Now, Finance Minister Seth Terkper was heckled in Parliament as he attempted to present the government's revised economic policy statement. This forced proceedings to be suspended for a while. After about 3 hours, sitting resumed and the minister was able to present a statement outlining government's plans to reduce expenditure as it grapples with a weakening economy. We're joined in the studio now by parliamentary correspondent Emmanuel Ante. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Steve.
Tell me what happened in Parliament today.
Well, the majority leader just woke up and said the minister is coming to give a statement, but on the other paper it's being advertised that he's coming to give a review of the budget.
I see.
But this all changed and this became a problem in Parliament. Let's listen to what the majority leader said.
Okay.
Mr. Speaker, as the majority leader who is in charge of government business, definitely I had to proffer an opinion on the matter. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm not a dead goat. Mr. Speaker, what I failed to do was to have gone back to the business committee to get that permission to make. I sought your leave, and as you recall, I did ask for the indulgence of my colleagues so that my Minister for Finance will make the statement.
Right, so that was the majority leader. So, Emmanuel, tell me, how was the issue resolved?
Well, the minority leader came in and he attested to the fact that the majority leader came to see him, but they did not come into an agreement that he was going to allow, or they were going to allow the speaker, the finance minister, to come and make a statement on the floor. Yeah.
So did you speak to any of the, or did you get any...
Let's just first listen to what the minority leader said in Parliament on the floor.
Okay.
Speaker is asking whether transmission of the information does not amount to consultation. He knows that doesn't amount to consultation. Mr. Speaker, so if you, Mr. Speaker, since he insists, if the majority leader sits in his office and listens to news from Joy FM, it's transmission of information, they are consulting him. Let's not go there. Mr. Speaker, the issue is, yes, he came to inform me, and I said I disagreed with the modus. The majority leader has apologized. He has apologized, and we should take that apology in good spirit. However, he agrees with me, and he and I have been discussing this, that even though the Electoral Commissioner came here and apologized to us, appropriate sanctions must be exacted. You and I have been discussing this. Mr. Speaker, so in view of this, this apology from the majority leader, it cannot just be taken.
Right, so Emmanuel, what happened next?
Well, as much as the speaker tried to keep the house in order and even threatening to evoke one of the standing orders that will mean he will have to drive one of the members or any of the members or even all of them out of the chamber, did not work, because they kept on ranting and shouting and all that. Just take a listen to it.
Okay. Honourable members, so we need to listen to the minister before we can make a determination on this matter. We need to listen. Members, those who want to tempt themselves into there are procedures in this house. Honorable members, the Minister of State is coming to make a statement. The procedure, let us listen to him. If the statement is the one that is invoking any power of Parliament constitutionally, then the House may decide to take it to the next level.
Right, interesting developments there from Parliament. Many thanks to Emmanuel Ante, our correspondent. Now, the Ghana Airport Company Limited has opened investigations into the cause of a fire outbreak at a restaurant at the Kotoka International Airport. Thursday's fire at the Hungry Home restaurant at the cargo terminal was contained by a combined team of personnel from the fire service and the fire unit of the airport company. 2 staff of the restaurant were rushed to hospital after one collapsed from inhaling smoke and the other sustained injuries while escaping the fire. Joy News' Beatrice Edu was at the scene of the fire and has filed this report.
So this is the Kotoka International Airport, and one of the main restaurants here this morning caught fire. We don't really know what started this fire, but I have one of the workers here who was actually inside the restaurant at the time of the fire outbreak. Tell us what you saw.
Okay, actually, I was then gilding a fish. Then we saw that the stove, one of the stove, the rope removed. Then the fire started burning, hardly went up. So we ran out of it, and then we put the regulator off from it, but still, it didn't stop.
How many were you in there?
We were 5 in there.
All of you cooking for the day?
Yeah.
And
one was out, one is at the reception. She is not in where we do prepare the food.
When it happened, what did you do?
Okay, we just put the regulator off. Then we were then looking for the fire extinguisher. So a man came for it, started to put it off, but still it wasn't able to go off.
How severe would you say the fire was? Did it get out of the roof and that?
Yeah, it get out of the roof.
And so would you say that everything in the kitchen is burnt now?
Everything in there is burnt.
How did you inside survive? How did you do that?
Okay, when we started that, the fire went up, then we started running out. So our senior colleague went and put the regulator off. So then that we were then looking for 2 ladies, we didn't find them. So they were also hiding at the back, they're running, but and it was blocked. So the smoke enters into the lady and she collapsed.
Elizabeth Asantewa suffered injuries when a bomb exploded on 6th March 1964 as she was about presenting a bouquet to Dr. Kwame Nkrumah at the Independence Anniversary celebration. Thankfully, she survived, but 51 years on, she's a pauper, afraid her deteriorating health could kill her at any moment. Felix Akoyam tells her story.
What I just saw was boom. It lifted me up and brought me back onto the ground. It was a big blast. All I saw was my leg burning.
She was too young at the time to understand what happened to her. As time went on, she grew to understand her situation. Her leg then started decaying. Elizabeth Asantewa's leg was amputated to prevent the spread of the impact of the bomb explosion so she can continue to live. Her disfigured supporting leg is decaying by the day. She usually walks with the support of crutches.
I feel general weakness. I need constant massage. I often feel dizzy. It's tough for me.
Today, the case is different. Her condition worsens daily due to lack of medical care. For Elizabeth, if her pain does not kill her, hunger might.
Sometimes, when I don't have money, I only drink water and sleep.
If only Elizabeth, her parents, or whoever nominated her for that glorious moment to present a bouquet to Osajifo had known the aftermath, they would have turned down the opportunity. The bomb exploded with her dreams. Elizabeth tells me Dr. Kwame Nkrumah promised her niece will be provided for by the government. This support ended with his overthrow. Elizabeth has some hope, but that keeps fading with each passing day as she grapples with the reality of her decaying leg and the help that may never come.
I'm pleading with the president. He knows my story. I'm appealing to him and all Ghanaians to help me.
Semi boy sudin na menya muta Entiria sifuni na pomia Niwa Yesu ya na menya dinina.
Felix Sakoyam, Joy News.
Very, very heartbreaking story there from Elizabeth. Now, kidney failure patients have made a passionate appeal to government to support their treatment. Some patients say they spend as much as 3,000 Ghana cedis each month on dialysis treatment, placing a huge financial burden on them and their families. As the world marks Kidney Day today, the patients are asking the National Health Insurance Authority to consider subsidizing their treatment. Joseph Opoko Gakbo was at the police hospital in Accra, where a ceremony was held to mark the day, and he filed this report.
World Kidney Day is celebrated annually to create awareness about renal diseases and encourage people to take good care of their health. Statistics from the Ministry of Health show that about 3,000 cases of kidney failure were recorded in the country in the year 2013 alone. The role of the kidney is to cleanse the blood of toxic substances, but in patients with kidney failure, that function is not possible.
This is the dialysis center at the Police Hospital here in Accra. This center has the capacity to treat about 8 patients at every point in time. Some of the patients, as we can see, are lying here. They are undertaking their treatment. Each of them needs to spend about 4 hours on the dialysis machine each time they come around here to undertake their treatment. Some of them need to undertake the treatment for at least 3 times each week. And the complaint that they make is that it comes at a very expensive cost to them, spending about 170 Ghana cedis on each treatment. And at the end of the month, apart from the treatment and all the medication that they need to take, some of them spend in excess of 3,000 cedis each month undertaking their treatment.
My uncle pays my bills. He spends 3.5 million cedis on me weekly for this. Now, he can't even pay the money for me monthly as he used to. He only pays weekly. Everyone should help us, government and all other individuals.
Director General in charge of the police hospital, DCOP Seidu Zakaria, appealed to corporate institutions to support the center with equipment and drugs for the treatment of patients.
We are grateful for Health Education on Wheels, who all the machines we have currently, they have provided the technical know-how for us to have dialysis. All their machines. The police hospital has nothing virtually. The other thing is the consumables to filter or to do renal replacement are quite expensive.
At the ceremony to mark World Kidney Day at the Police Hospital, Executive Chairman of the NGO Health Education on Wheels, Godfred Nyante, advised Ghanaians to be watchful of their eating and drinking habits to avoid kidney failure.
You're watching Joy News Prime. We're live from our studios in Accra, also available across London on ABN Sky Channel 235. Up next is Business with Etanam Say. Right, it's time for Business. Hey, I hope you have good news.
No, more people lose their jobs.
Oh my God.
You know, there's a fall in crude oil prices. So
Yes.
Tallow is laying off workers again. And interestingly, it's affecting government expenditure because there will be cuts in
Austere measures.
I told you.
All right, so let's hear that.
Time now for business. Et Onam say Tallow Oil has confirmed it has begun consultations with its employees over planned layoffs. The Communications and Investor Relations Manager, Benis Natui, told Joy business, the company will communicate the number of workers to be retrenched by next weekend. Tallow is attributing the job cuts to the fall in crude oil prices on the world market. Sectors under the annual budget funding amount, ABDA, should expect cuts in the expenditure for 2015. Government is trying to manage the reviewed budget to match the fall in revenue. Finance Minister said Tekpe on announcing this says areas such as goods and services and the transport sector will be affected.
As you know, the management of expenditures, if you like, are going to come from goods and services and capital, particularly the areas that benefited from the ABFA. You know, so those are the expenditures. You cannot cut your statutory obligations, and some expenditure cuts are warranted. And as I often state, we don't question if a household comes to some, situation like unemployment, loss of jobs. We all belong to businesses, multimedia. If the advertising revenue is not coming, what do? You cut expenditure, right? Sometimes you, God forbid, lose jobs. And for example, I've heard on some of our radio stations, I don't want to be very particular, about loss of jobs. In the mining, you go to Obuasi, and now we are talking about oil companies losing. That's their way of cutting costs. And so if, as a government, we don't cut costs, right, or we don't prioritize, what do? We'll borrow, and we'll continue complaining, because you borrow to finance, the expenditure.
Government expects the new national airline to start operations by the end of this year. The Transport Ministry had earlier announced the airline would take off this month, but Transport Minister Jifa Ativo says plans have changed.
After some discussions, they told us that one was not possible. So they are working towards the end of the year. Monday, we got the pre-feasibility report from the transaction advisor. They've just submitted the report. We'll study it and know what to do next. So, whatever is in the report has to be forwarded to Ministry of Finance, the PPP desk, for onward submission to the World Bank. It's World Bank that is funding the transaction advisor process. So it will be sent to them, whatever is in the report. If they agree, then we'll move to the next stage.
The Ghana Youth Entrepreneurship Support Initiative has to date reviewed over 2,800 applications. President John Mahama disclosed this when he visited the offices of a beneficiary of Botswana's version of the Youth Entrepreneurship Support Initiative.
We have more than 2,800 applications so far, and we are now going through to select the projects that qualify. They range across different sectors. There's quite a lot in agriculture and food production, in livestock, in different areas. But I'm happy to see an example of what projects like this can do.
The visit to the offices of D-Zone, a beneficiary of Botswana's Youth Development Program, was to assess the impact of the program and compare notes and lessons on the best way forward for the youth employment models in the two countries. Unlike Ghana's initiative, in which monies to be given beneficiaries are startup grants, beneficiaries of the Botswana Youth Development Program are required to pay back the loans given them by government within a period of time.
Through the Youth Development Fund, the ministry gives out funds to young people to start businesses at a maximum of 100,000, which is an equivalent of $10,240 per applicant, and a maximum of 450,000 per youth industry, which is a group of 5 to 10 young people.
D-Zone, a production company, started with a set of camera and computer, 1 employee and 2 interns. It now employs over 50 young people. President John Mahama invited the young entrepreneur Tabiso Maret-Wanning to Ghana to share his success story with the youth of Ghana when the YES Initiative beneficiaries take off with their various projects.
Often when government initiates projects like this, people are skeptical, about whether they really will achieve the objective. But this is a living example. I wish that, we can bring you as an ambassador to Ghana sometime. When we select our beneficiaries of the YES program, I very much want to see you come to that ceremony and then talk about what you've been able to do here, so that it motivates our young people to see that what you have done, they also can do.
In Ghana, most of the applicants for the YES program are said to be focused on agriculture. But some of the activities that this youth-oriented company in Botswana is engaged in includes promoting Botswana's tourism sector, as well as businesses being run by young people in Botswana through advertisement. Giftian Dopia, Joy News, Gaborone, Botswana.
Thank you.
On that note, we wrap up with Business Sports is next. My name is Eton Amse. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, time for sports, and we'll have to talk about what's really happening right now with the Black Satellites. They're up against their Zambian counterparts in a bid to qualify for the World Cup in 2015. Now, that's what's happening now. It's 1-1 between the Black Satellites and Zambia. They got the first goal, and of course, it was Atobra who got the equalizer for the Black Satellites, and they are on this. We'll find out what happens. Earlier in the day as well, it was Mali who picked up their tickets to the World Cup that will be staged in New Zealand. So if we are praying that the Black Satellites will do well and qualify and get the most important 3 points. It's 1-1 at this point. Let's do some more and talk about football. And about $100 million was spent on the 4 national stadia for the CAN 2008. The Accra Babayara Sports Stadia were refurbished, while the Tamale and the Sipon Stadia were purposely built for the competition. But all of these edifices are falling apart for a lack of maintenance. The National Sports Authority, who have been tasked with the management of all national stadia, have fallen short of expectation. Dr. Kofi Amoah believes a lot more needs to be done to maintain these facilities.
I will not disagree with anything that works. If over the years, in the history of managing our sports assets, our stadia, our pitches, whatever, putting them in a certain entity, it has been beautiful and smooth running and cost effective, then we continue. But if it hasn't, then it means we must say time out. There's something we are doing wrong. Maybe the organization that we are entrusting this into, maybe this is not the right time to do that. Maybe let's try the private sector. Maybe let's have an arrangement with a company that we share revenue after a certain cost. They have responsibilities to engage their skills in producing a certain level of income, and after that income, which is the threshold to either pay for the investment we made, get some little profit or enough money to maintain it. Anything above that, we can share with them. We can have an arrangement like that,
SAS now, and they made one step up the table from 25th position held previously as FIFA released the latest rankings for the month of March. Ghana, who maintained their third place, have 30 points and now have a tally of 888 points after gathering 23 more. Germany are still in the lead on the world ranking table. So let's have a look at that. That's what we have in terms of Africa. Is Algeria number 1, Cote d'Ivoire, then Ghana number 3, there's Tunisia as well, as you saw that in that table for Africa. And then when we look at what's happening in the world, is Germany, Argentina, Colombia, Belgium, Netherlands, Brazil, Portugal, France, Uruguay, and Italy in that order. Time to talk about boxing, and it's about everybody's looking ahead to happening on May 2 between Manny Mayweather and of course Manny Pacquiao. Love the money. It's going to cost about £250 million. That's it, and we're ready for this. All set for that.
WBO welterweight champion of the world, Manny Pacquiao. The current undefeated WBC and WBA welterweight and super welterweight champion of the world, Floyd Money Mayweather.
presents our...
I believe that is what are you waiting for since 5 years ago. So I think the fight is on, and you're very excited. I know you're very excited, and we're both of us. We're going to undergo a hard training for this fight, and we will do our best on May 2 to make you happy.
It's been a long road, but we're here now. May 2nd, the fight of the century. It's all about the best, fighting the best. And Pacquiao is one of the best fighters of this era. And everything's about timing. And you know, I think we couldn't choose a better time. From day one, I was always taught to be a winner, no matter what.
Is on. Who would your bets be on? Actually, I'm not disclosing mine for now. We'll find out what happens. On that pugilistic note, we end sports. Stephen will join us with some more. Have a good night.
Right, let's do some more local stories now. Male residents of Boko have expressed relief at the partial lifting of the ban which for about 7 years prohibited them from driving motorbikes in the town. The ban was imposed in the conflict-prone town to curb crime. Starting this week, however, the District Security Council decided that male residents could use their motorbikes between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. Our correspondent, Albert Asare, is now joining us for some on this. Good evening, Albert, and thanks for your time. Tell us why motorbikes are so important for life in Boko. Albert, if you can hear me, I'm asking you why motorbikes are so important for life in Boko.
Well, Stephen, motorbikes are the commonest means of transport here in the Afar region. Not only in Boko, but every part of the region. A lot of people use them in place of cars and other means of transport because they are cheaper to maintain, and you know, the cost of fueling them is also cheaper compared to if you have to take taxi or any other means of transport for that matter. So that is why motorbikes are so important in Boko.
Right, so tell me, what is the mood in Boko with this decision to relax the ban?
Well, for the men, it comes as a very big relief because for a very long time, most of them had to resort to using bicycles, that is if they couldn't afford to take taxis to work. And so for people like teachers and nurses who needed to ride motorbikes to get to work, especially for those who are working in rural areas, you cannot ride through Boko to where you are supposed to go and work. So it was a very inconveniencing situation for the men because the women were allowed to ride. And so now it comes as a very, very big relief. They can now, you know, get to work at a cheaper cost because of the partial lifting of the ban.
Now, I need to find out from you, whilst the ban was in place, what became the popular mode of transportation now that men were unable to use their motorbikes?
Well, the commonest was bicycles.
Okay.
A lot of them resorted to using bicycles to get to work. And also quickly, tricycles became very, very popular. It's just that they are not too safe. So a lot of people, especially for people who do official work, don't want to use them because of the way they easily get involved in accidents. And so these were the two. And for those who had money, they would just charter taxis and get to work.
Right, thank you very much, Albert. Sorry for that quick update. Let's do some quick international stories now. At least 8 people have died in an attack by suspected Al-Shabaab militants on a fortified government compound in the town of Bayaboa, southern Somalia. The attackers, who are said to have been wearing military uniforms, shot their way into the compound after setting off an explosion at the gates. All 5 of the gunmen are believed to have been killed. Al-Shabaab continues to carry out attacks despite being weakened by drone strikes and an African Union operation. The Islamist militants, who are allied to Al-Qaeda, controlled Baidoa for 3 years until they were driven out by Ethiopian troops in 2012. And that's it for the Joy News Prime. My name is Stephen Enti. Before we go, our headlines again. Businessman Alfred Agbeshi-Woyome has been cleared of the offense of causing financial loss to the state, but the Attorney General says she totally disagrees with the ruling. We also brought you the reaction of former President Rawlings and members of Parliament. And sitting in Parliament was today suspended after Finance Minister Seth Terkper was heckled as he attempted to present government's revised economic policy statement. And kidney failure patients have made a passionate appeal to government to support their treatment. They say cost of dialysis treatment is too much and is putting a huge financial burden on them. And that's it for the news. My name is Stephen Enti, and for more news, you can log on to myjoyonline.com. Good evening.
This is Joy News Prime.